Welcome to Quiz Kallie Case Files, where we dive deep into the most shocking and perplexing crimes, documentaries, and riddles. Today, we uncover the tragic and complex story of Richard Engelbert, a successful real estate agent whose hidden life and secrets led to his brutal murder. Richard Engelbert was a 48-year-old man living in Littleton, Colorado. He was a well-known real estate agent in the community, often seen driving around in his sleek black car with a license plate, Sexy Realtor, showing homes to clients. Richard was married to Wendy, a school principal, and had a stepson named Harrison. He graduated from the University of Colorado with a degree in business and had been in the real estate business for over 20 years. People in Littleton trusted Richard because he always seemed friendly and reliable. Richard lived in a large two-story house with a well-manicured lawn. His neighbors often saw him working in the yard, greeting them with a warm smile and a wave. He was involved in local events and charity fundraisers, often sponsoring local Little League teams and attending church on Sundays. Richard seemed to have the perfect life with a beautiful home, a successful career, and a loving family. However, Richard had a secret life. For the past 2 years, he had been in a sexual relationship with his stepson, Harrison. Richard kept this relationship hidden from everyone, fearing it would ruin his reputation and career. In addition to this, he continued to meet other men for sex through his work, using the homes he showed as secret meeting places. These double lives created a lot of stress and tension for Richard. In the days before his death, Richard was busy with work, closing deals, and meeting clients. He spent long hours at the office and often came home late. He was looking forward to a weekend getaway to the Bahamas with his wife, Wendy, hoping to relax and forget about his troubles for a while. Richard was also planning to attend a 4th of July barbecue at a friend's house, where he expected to catch up with old friends and enjoy some time away from his hectic life. Richard's friends described him as charismatic and charming. He had a way of making people feel comfortable and important. Despite his friendly exterior, Richard was deeply troubled by his hidden life. He felt guilty about his affair with Harrison and the lies he told to keep it a secret. He was also worried about Wendy finding out, fearing it would destroy their marriage and his standing in the community. In his last days, Richard was a man under pressure, trying to juggle his public persona with his private turmoil. His dreams of a perfect life were slowly unraveling, leading to a tragic and violent end. On June 27, 2014, around 3:00 p.m., Wendy Engelbert returned early from her job as a school principal. She was looking forward to a relaxing evening, maybe watching some shows on Netflix and catching up on her favorite book. As she walked through the front door of their house on Bleak Street in Littleton, Colorado, everything seemed normal. At first, she put her keys on the kitchen counter and called out for Richard, but there was no answer. Feeling a bit uneasy, Wendy decided to check the basement, where Richard often spent time working on his real estate files or watching the History Channel. As she descended the stairs, she noticed that the basement door was slightly ajar, which was unusual. She called his name again, louder this time, but still no response. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, she was met with a scene of horror. Richard's lifeless body was sprawled on the floor, surrounded by signs of a violent struggle. There were bloodstains on the carpet and furniture, and Richard's face was bruised and battered. A men's luxury belt was wrapped tightly around his neck, clearly used to choke him to death. Wendy screamed in terror and rushed to her husband's side, shaking him and desperately trying to wake him up, but it was too late. In a state of shock and disbelief, Wendy grabbed her cell phone and dialed 911. Her hands trembled as she spoke to the operator, her voice cracking with emotion. "My husband is dead. I think he's been murdered," she cried, struggling to catch her breath. The operator tried to calm her down and instructed her to stay on the line until the police arrived. Wendy's neighbor, Luby Johnson, heard the commotion and came over to see what was happening. She found Wendy sitting on the front steps, sobbing uncontrollably. Luby stayed with Wendy, trying to comfort her while they waited for the police. The minutes felt like hours, and Wendy's mind raced with questions about who could have done this and why. When the police finally arrived, they quickly secured the scene and escorted Wendy and Luby away from the basement. Wendy was in a state of shock, barely able to comprehend what had just happened. She kept repeating, "Who would do this to Richard?" over and over again, her mind unable to process the brutal reality of her husband's death. The first suspect in Richard Engelbert's murder was his wife, Wendy Engelbert. Wendy, 47, was a respected school principal in Littleton, known for her intelligence and strong personality. She had been with the school district for over 15 years and was heavily involved in community activities. Her colleagues described her as dedicated and authoritative, always striving for excellence. Wendy was brought in for questioning the day after the murder on June 28, 2014. Detective James Cattle led the interrogation, trying to piece together her actions and emotions. Wendy appeared exhausted and distraught, but she answered questions calmly. She recounted her day at work and the horrifying discovery of Richard's body when she returned home. Despite her composed demeanor, Wendy's anger and confusion were evident. She expressed disbelief and frustration over the affair, insisting she had no idea Richard was sexually involved with other men. The revelation of the affair added tension to the interrogation, as Detective Cattle probed deeper into Wendy's feelings about her husband's betrayal. Detective Cattle asked Wendy about her relationship with Richard. She admitted they had a strong partnership, but mentioned that they had faced some challenges recently. Wendy claimed she was unaware of Richard's secret life. She explained she had a recent ski injury, which had caused her difficulty in reading people's actions, and suggested this might be why she missed any signs of Richard's double life. Wendy's alibi was solid. She had been at the school all day, attending meetings and preparing for the upcoming school year. Colleagues and security footage confirmed her presence at work during the time of the murder. Nonetheless, her connection to the victim made her a person of interest. Detective Cattle also explored Wendy's possible motive. Her reputation and career were crucial to her, and Richard's affair threatened both. However, Wendy firmly denied any involvement in the murder, maintaining her innocence throughout the questioning. She was cooperative and provided all requested information, including her phone records and emails. The police found no evidence linking Wendy to the crime scene or suggesting any suspicious behavior on her part. The next suspect was Harrison Engelbert, Richard's 22-year-old stepson. Harrison had recently graduated from college and was known for his athleticism and intelligence. He had been living with Richard and Wendy for several years while completing his studies. Harrison was described by friends as outgoing and friendly, but his relationship with Richard was seen as strained by some. Harrison was also interviewed by Detective Cattle on June 28, 2014. He appeared nervous and agitated, his hands fidgeting as he spoke. Harrison admitted to having a complicated relationship with his stepfather. He described Richard as controlling and manipulative, which had led to frequent arguments. During the interrogation, Harrison revealed that he had discovered Richard's affair with other men about 6 months prior. He had confronted Richard about it, leading to a heated argument. Harrison said that the argument ended with him moving out of the house for a short period. He had returned a month before the murder, but had been living in a separate room. The police discovered that Harrison had been in and out of the house frequently, adding another layer of suspicion. His whereabouts on the day of the murder were unclear, as he claimed to have been at a friend's house, but his alibi was not immediately confirmed. Detective Cattle and his team explored Harrison's possible motive. The stepson had been deeply hurt by Richard's betrayal and had previously expressed anger and resentment towards him. They also reviewed Harrison's phone records and social media activity, which revealed that he had been in contact with Richard on the day of the murder. Harrison had sent Richard several text messages, which went unanswered. Detective Cattle noted that Harrison's behavior during the interrogation was inconsistent and suspicious, leading him to consider Harrison as a key suspect in the case. The third suspect in the murder of Richard Engelbert was Edward Matthews, a 33-year-old man who had been Richard's personal assistant for the past 5 years. Edward was known for his reliability and attention to detail, making him an essential part of Richard's real estate business. He was also involved in managing Richard's schedule and handling various administrative tasks. Edward Matthews had a complicated history with Richard. They had a close working relationship, but recent months had been tense. Edward had become increasingly frustrated with Richard's demanding nature and constant micromanagement. On June 27, 2014, Edward was at the office until late, handling paperwork and preparing for upcoming appointments. He claimed to have left the office around 2 p.m., about an hour before the murder was discovered. Edward's alibi was somewhat questionable, as he had not provided clear details about his whereabouts after leaving the office. Detective Cattle interviewed Edward on June 28, 2014. Edward was calm and composed during the interrogation, but his demeanor seemed slightly detached. He explained that he had been feeling overwhelmed by work and was planning to take a vacation soon. Edward admitted to having disagreements with Richard over the past few months, but he insisted that he had no reason to harm him. Despite Edward's assurances, Detective Cattle found several red flags. Edward had been aware of Richard's secret life, as he had inadvertently discovered some of Richard's personal documents and messages. This knowledge made him a potential suspect, especially since he had access to Richard's home and personal affairs. The police reviewed Edward's phone records, which showed multiple calls and messages between him and Richard, including some that seemed to be about personal matters. They also looked into Edward's financial situation and discovered that he had been facing mounting debts, which could have provided a motive for financial gain or revenge. As the investigation progressed, the police examined various pieces of evidence and analyzed the suspect's motives and opportunities. Detective James Cattle focused on uncovering the truth behind Richard Engelbert's murder, working tirelessly to piece together the puzzle of the case. Each suspect had a possible motive and opportunity, but determining the identity of the killer required careful examination of all available evidence and further interviews. Forensic analysis. Forensic experts provided crucial insights into the crime scene. The luxury belt used to strangle Richard was carefully examined for fingerprints and DNA. The analysis revealed that there were no identifiable prints on the belt, suggesting that the killer had worn gloves. The DNA collected from the crime scene was compared with the suspect's profiles, but initial results did not provide a definitive match. Electronic evidence. Detectives scrutinized Richard's recent communications, including emails and text messages. They found that Richard had been in frequent contact with his personal assistant, Edward Matthews, leading up to the murder. Several texts between them suggested increasing tension over work-related issues. Additionally, Edward had been privy to Richard's secret life, making him a person of interest. Witness statements. Neighbors were re-interviewed to get a clearer picture of Richard's last moments. Luby Johnson, who had found Wendy on the front steps, mentioned hearing unusual noises coming from the Engelbert house earlier in the day. Her description of the sounds matched the time frame when the murder could have occurred. Suspect reactions. The suspect's reactions to the ongoing investigation were closely monitored. Wendy remained cooperative but emotionally strained. Harrison's behavior was erratic, with inconsistencies in his alibi, while Edward seemed detached, his demeanor raising further suspicion. Edward Matthews connection. A breakthrough came when Detective Cattle reviewed Edward Matthews' financial records. They discovered that Edward had recently made large cash withdrawals, which coincided with the timeline of the murder. When confronted, Edward claimed the money was for a planned vacation, but his alibi for the time of the murder remained shaky. The threatening note. Investigators discovered a threatening note hidden in Richard's personal files. The note was written in a frantic hand and hinted at someone feeling betrayed and desperate. The handwriting was analyzed, and comparisons were made with samples from each suspect. The analysis showed a close match with Edward Matthews's handwriting. Edward's confession. Under the mounting pressure, Edward Matthews eventually broke down and confessed to the crime. He admitted to killing Richard out of a combination of rage and desperation. Edward revealed that he had discovered Richard's secret life and felt deeply betrayed. The confrontation with Richard over financial matters and the strain from his personal problems drove him to commit the murder. Trial and sentencing. Edward Matthews was charged with the murder of Richard Engelbert. During the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling case, supported by forensic evidence, witness testimonies, and Edward's confession. The defense argued that Edward had acted out of emotional turmoil, but the evidence overwhelmingly supported his guilt. Edward was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The community of Littleton was left in shock and mourning as they came to terms with the violent end of Richard Engelbert and the revelation of the hidden secrets that had led to his death. Impact on the community. The case had a profound impact on the community. The Engelberts' seemingly perfect life was shattered, revealing the dark undercurrents that lay beneath. Wendy and Harrison were left to pick up the pieces of their lives, forever changed by the tragedy. The murder of Richard Engelbert served as a stark reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the sometimes hidden turmoil that can lead to unimaginable violence. Detective James Cattle's relentless pursuit of justice brought closure to the case, but the scars left on those involved would take much longer to heal. Thank you for tuning into our deep dive into the tragic and complex story of Richard Engelbert. We bring you the most shocking and perplexing crime stories, meticulously investigated and presented just for you. What do you think about the suspects and the clues we've uncovered so far? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. For more gripping true crime content and to join our growing community of crime enthusiasts, hit that subscribe button and follow us on social media platforms for exclusive updates and behind-the-scenes content. Thank you for your support, and remember, stay curious, stay safe, and stay tuned.